The blood soaking through her left pant leg was her own. Sloane Merrick pressed a field dressing against the shrapnel wound with one hand while her other hand keyed the radio. Her voice came out steady, clinical, the way it had been trained to sound when everything around her was falling apart. Dust off, this is Sentinel Actual. 3 urgent, 1 routine. LZ is hot. I say again, LZ is hot but secure. 2 minutes. She could feel the warm wetness spreading down to her boot. Class 2 hemorrhage, maybe Class 3. Her own diagnosis delivered with the same detachment she would use on anyone else. The irony wasn't lost on her. Medics always treated themselves last. Private Hatcher lay 3 feet away, his face the color of old newspaper. His chest rose and fell in shallow gasps. She had already done everything she could for him. Now it was just a race between the helicopter and his fading pulse. "Stay with me, Hatcher," she said. The 19-year-old's eyes found hers. Terrified, trusting. The voice in her head was her father's. "Steady hands, Sloane. They heal or they harm. You choose which." She had chosen 6 years ago, made a promise at a funeral with her mother's tears still wet on her collar. Never again, never touch a rifle, never become what he had been, but that was before the siege, before the choice became binary, before she learned that some promises were made to be broken. They said medics save lives. Snipers take them. No one told her she would have to do both. 3 weeks earlier, the desert had seemed almost peaceful. FOB Sentinel squatted in the Helmand province like a fist of sandbags in concertina wire. 47 Marines and 1 Navy corpsman. The corpsman was 5'4" and weighed 120 pounds soaking wet. When she stepped off the Chinook with her medical pack strapped high and tight, Gunnery Sergeant Talmadge took one look and spat into the dust. Talmadge was 47 and built like a cinder block. His face had the texture of old leather left too long in the sun. 3 deployments, 2 Purple Hearts, 1 dead corpsman on his conscience. Doc Merrick reporting for duty, Gunny. Sloane's hand stayed at her side. She knew better than to offer it. Talmadge was studying her the way a jeweler studies a stone looking for fractures. "Last corpsman we had froze under fire," Talmadge said. His voice carried no inflection. "Just fact. 2 Marines died waiting for treatment. You different. You'll see, Gunny. That's not an answer. It's the only one I've got." Something flickered in Talmadge's eyes, not approval. Not yet, but maybe the absence of immediate dismissal. He jerked his chin toward the medical hooch. "Gear up, we patrol in 20. Sloane shouldered her pack and walked. She could feel eyes tracking her across the compound. 47 sets of eyes all asking the same question, all remembering the corpsman who came before. The medical hooch was a plywood box with a red cross painted on the side. Inside it smelled like disinfectant and dust. The previous corpsman's gear still sat in the corner. Someone had packed it neatly, respectfully, but no one had shipped it home yet. She didn't ask what happened to him. She already knew. The first week they tested her the way Marines always test new attachments. Lance Corporal Keller was 23 and walked point like he was born to it. He had shoulders that belonged on a lumberjack and a face that looked like it had lost arguments with barroom floors. On day 3, he made his assessment loud enough for everyone to hear. "One 20-pound doc can't hump a 60-pound pack. She'll slow us down, get someone killed." Well, the patrol route was 12 miles through terrain that looked like God had started to make a parking lot and quit halfway through. Rocks, sand, more rocks. The sun turned the air into something visible. Sloane finished in the middle of the pack. She didn't complain, didn't ask for breaks. When they stopped for water, she checked everyone's hydration status out of habit. Keller's urine was dark amber. She handed him 2 packets of electrolyte powder without comment. He took them. By week 2, he had stopped talking about her weight. The range sat on the eastern edge of the compound. Sergeant Raines ran it like a priest runs a chapel. Raines was 29 and had the kind of lean, economical build that came from carrying a rifle for 11 years. His M24 sniper rifle was an extension of his nervous system. When he shot, he didn't miss. On the afternoon of day 8, he found Sloane cleaning weapons with the rest of the squad. She had an M4 field stripped on a tarp in front of her. Her hands moved with unconscious efficiency. Magazine release, takedown pins, bolt carrier group, 39 seconds from complete to component parts. Raines watched for a moment before speaking. "You qualled on the M4 doc. Familiarization only, required for deployment. Want to run the range, see what you can do." Sloane looked up at him. Her hands paused over the lower receiver. For just a moment, something passed across her face. Old pain, old memory. I'm here to save lives, Sergeant, not take them. She went back to cleaning. Rain stood there another 5 seconds. Then he walked away. Behind her, Keller muttered to another Marine, the words carried in the still air. Waste of a billet. Sloane's hands didn't stop moving. Chief Warrant Officer Strand was 51 and had been in the Marine Corps longer than some of the privates had been alive. He had the quiet, watchful quality of a man who had seen enough violence to know when it was coming. He spoke less than anyone on the FOB. Notice more. It was Strand who saw the scars. Week 3. Weapons maintenance after a sandstorm that had turned the air into soup. Everyone cleaning their rifles with the desperate focus of people whose lives depended on mechanical reliability. Sloane had her M4 apart again. Bolt carrier group out. She was running a bore snake through the barrel with practiced rhythmic strokes. Her right hand gripped the pull cord. Strand saw the marks on her palm. Powder burns. Old ones. Years old. The kind of scars that came from hundreds of hours behind a rifle. Maybe thousands. The skin had that characteristic stippling small dark points where hot gas and unburned powder had tattooed permanent reminders into flesh. Her trigger finger had calluses. Not new, not from 3 weeks of carrying an M4 on patrol. These were old calluses, worn smooth, the kind that took years to build. Strand said nothing. He filed the information away and waited. Private First Class Hatcher was 19 and looked 16. He had joined the Marines to pay for college and ended up in Helmand Province instead. 3 weeks in country, still writing letters home every night, still believed the deployment would end with everyone coming home. Week 3, day 4, temperature 118 degrees. The patrol had been routine until Hatcher went down. One moment he was walking. The next he was on his knees in the dust, gasping like a fish on a dock. His face had gone from red to gray. Sweat poured off him, but his skin felt cold. Heat stroke. Sloane was beside him in seconds. Her medical pack hit the ground already open, hands moving with the same efficiency she had shown with weapons. Check airway, breathing rapid and shallow, pulse thready, skin cool and clammy despite the heat. Keller, I need shade now. Keller and another Marine rigged a poncho for overhead cover. Sloane already had Hatcher's body armor off. Uniform top next. She poured water over his head and torso while pulling IV supplies from her pack. Talk to me, Hatcher. What's your name? Hatcher. First name, Daniel. Daniel, you're going to be fine, but I need you to stay with me. The IV went in on the first stick. Sloane's hands were rock steady. She squeezed the bag to push fluids faster. Her other hand was on Hatcher's carotid counting pulse. Her face showed nothing but calculation. Gunny, I need dust off, now. Talmadge was already on the radio. What am I telling them? Exertional rhabdomyolysis. Muscle tissue is breaking down, potassium levels spiking. If his kidneys shut down, he dies. She said it matter-of-factly, the way you would say it's going to rain. Talmadge's voice changed on the radio, more urgent. Medical evacuations got priority when a corpsman used terms like rhabdomyolysis. The helicopter came in 12 minutes. Hatcher was conscious when they loaded him. He looked up at Sloane with the gratitude of someone who knew how close he had come to dying in the dirt. Thanks, Doc. She squeezed his shoulder once. Then she was gathering her equipment, repacking her medical bag, preparing to continue the patrol. Talmadge stood watching. When she walked past him, he gave a single nod. It wasn't approval yet, but it was close. Week 4. The IED was buried under a footbridge that had been checked 3 times. The Taliban were patient. They waited until the 4th patrol to make it live. Keller was on point. The explosion threw him backwards 10 feet. The blast radius was small, contained, professional, designed to wound, not kill. Wounded Marines required rescue. Rescue created more targets. Sloane was moving before the dust settled. Keller was conscious, screaming. His left leg below the knee looked wrong. But it wasn't the leg that was going to kill him. It was the femoral artery. Blood was pulsing from his upper thigh in rhythmic jets. Bright red, arterial, each pulse matching his heartbeat. Each heartbeat pumping his life into the Afghan dirt. Sloane hit her knees beside him, and her hands were already in her medical pack. No hesitation. No freezing. Keller, look at me. Look at me. His eyes found hers. Wild. Terrified. You're going to be fine, but you need to shut up and let me work. Her hands moved with mechanical precision. Cat tourniquet out of its package. Around the thigh. High and tight. Above the wound. Closer to the groin than the knee. She twisted the windlass with both hands. The blood flow slowed, stopped. She secured the windlass and checked her watch. Marked the time on his forehead with a marker. 1400 hours. The bleeding was controlled, But he wasn't out of the woods. His breathing was wrong, fast and shallow. His chest moving, but no air exchange on the left side. Sloan ripped his uniform open, watched his chest rise and fall. The left side wasn't moving right. Tension pneumothorax, air building up in the chest cavity, compressing the lung. If she didn't relieve the pressure, his heart would stop. Keller, this is going to hurt, but if I don't do it, you die. Understand? He nodded, teeth gritted. Sloan found the spot between his ribs. Second intercostal space, mid-clavicular line. The anatomy was automatic, burned into her brain from 1,000 practice sessions. She didn't hesitate. The 14-gauge needle punched through skin muscle and into the pleural space. There was a hiss of escaping air. Keller gasped. His chest began to move properly. There you go. Breathe, Marine. The dust-off came in 4 minutes. Sloan rode with him to the LZ, one hand on his pulse, the other holding IV fluids. When they loaded him onto the helicopter, Keller grabbed her wrist. His voice was hoarse, rough. I was wrong about you, Doc. Shut up and live, Keller. The helicopter lifted off in a storm of dust and noise. Sloan walked back to the patrol line. Her hands were covered in Keller's blood. Her uniform, too. She didn't bother wiping it off. There would be more blood before this deployment was over. There always was. That night, Strand found her outside the medical hooch. She was cleaning her gear by the light of a red lens flashlight. The blood had dried to a brown crust on her hands. He sat down on the sandbag wall without asking permission. You move fast under fire, Strand said. Training. That's more than training. Sloan looked at him. Her face was neutral, giving nothing away. You've got powder burns on your right hand, Strand continued. Old ones. And calluses on your trigger finger that didn't come from 3 weeks humping an M4. Observant. Comes with age. Sloan went back to cleaning her gear. Methodical, thorough. Strand waited. He was good at waiting. Finally, she spoke. My father taught me to shoot. Long time ago. Different life. He military. Marine. Gunnery sergeant. Scout sniper platoon. Strand filed that away. Past tense. Killed in action. Fallujah, 2005. I'm sorry. Don't be. He died doing what he believed in. And you became a corpsman. I became a corpsman. Strand was quiet for a moment. Then you could have been a shooter. With those hands. That kind of background. I'm here to save lives, Chief, not take them. Sometimes those are the same thing. Sloan looked at him, really looked at him. Her eyes were hard, old, too old for 26. Not in my experience. Strand stood up, started to walk away, then paused. Your father would be proud of what you did today. You didn't know my father. I know enough. He disappeared into the darkness. Sloan sat alone with her thoughts and her gear, and the ghost of a man who had taught her that steady hands could heal or harm. She had chosen healing, and she had kept that choice for 6 years, but the desert had a way of changing things. September 14th, 0600 hours. The morning started with the illusion of routine. Sloan was in the medical hooch doing inventory. Morphine, combat gauze, tourniquets, the supplies that kept Marines alive when everything went wrong. The radio tower stood 30 feet tall in the center of the compound. It was their link to the outside world, their lifeline. The first RPG hit the tower at 0612. The explosion was massive, immediate. The tower came down in a screaming tangle of metal and wire. Communications went dark in an instant. The second RPG hit the northern guard post. Then the shooting started. Automatic weapons fire from the ridgeline. The distinctive crack of AK-47s. Heavier weapons, PKM machine guns. The sound rolled across the compound like thunder. Sloan grabbed her medical pack and ran. Outside, the world had gone insane. Marines scrambling to positions. Talmadge's voice cutting through the chaos. Orders. Calm. Professional. Contact east, ridgeline, multiple shooters. Sloan made it to the northern post. 2 Marines were down. 1 was already gone. The RPG had caught him in the open. There was nothing anyone could do for him now. The other was alive. She went to work. The firefight raged around her, bullets snapping overhead, the crack and thump of near misses. Sloan's hands moved independently of her fear, training overriding survival instinct. She had just finished when the next sound cut through everything else. A single rifle shot, different from the automatic fire. Precise, deliberate. 100 meters away, a Marine's head snapped back. He fell like a puppet with cut strings. Sniper. Another shot. Another Marine down. Professional. Calculated. Every shot a kill. Rains was screaming into the radio. Sniper! 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 Ridge East! I need counters now! But there was no answer. The radio tower was gone. They were cut off. Alone. And somewhere in the rocks above them, someone was hunting. Sloan looked up at the ridgeline. The sun was just beginning to paint the rocks gold. Beautiful. Serene. Deadly. She thought about her father, about steady hands, about the choice she had made 6 years ago at a funeral in Oregon. The choice to heal instead of harm. The siege had begun, and before it ended, Sloan Merrick would have to become something she had sworn she would never be again. The next 96 hours would change everything. By noon on day one, the tactical situation was clear. They were surrounded, outnumbered, cut off from support, and somewhere in the high ground, at least one professionally trained sniper had them pinned down. Talmadge gathered the squad leaders in the command hooch. Sloan was there by virtue of being the only medical officer. She stood in the corner, quiet, taking it all in. Situation report, Talmadge said. His voice was flat, unemotional. We have 45 effectives, 2 KIA, 3 wounded but mobile, ammunition at 80%, food for 6 days, water for 4 if we ration. No communications, no support. Questions. Rains spoke up. The sniper, Eastern Ridge, maybe 800 meters. He's got the entire eastern approach locked down. Professional shooter, military training, every shot a kill. Can you counter him? Rains hesitated, just for a moment, but everyone in the room saw it. My rifle's trigger assembly is malfunctioning. I can't hold 0 past 400 meters. I need parts we don't have. The room went quiet. A sniper without a working rifle was just another rifleman. And they had plenty of riflemen. What they didn't have was someone who could reach out 800 meters and touch someone. Wyatt's rifle, someone said. He's unconscious, but his M40's still good. Wyatt shoots left-handed, Rains said. His rifle is set up backwards from how I shoot. Stock length is wrong. Eye relief is wrong. I could make it work at 3-400, but not 8. Talmadge looked around the room. His face was carved from stone. Then we have a problem. Outside, another shot rang out. Single. Precise. Someone was screaming for a corpsman. Sloan grabbed her medical pack and ran. The war was 4 hours old, and it was just getting started. Day 1, hour 4. The sun had climbed high enough to turn the compound into an oven. Heat shimmered off the sandbags in visible waves. Sloan had treated 6 wounded Marines in the past 3 hours. Minor wounds mostly. Shrapnel, ricochets, 1 sucking chest wound that would have been fatal if she had been 30 seconds slower. The Taliban fighters had settled into a rhythm. Probing attacks, harassing fire, conserving ammunition. They knew time was on their side. The Americans were trapped. Cut off. Eventually they would run out of bullets or water or luck. But it was the sniper who controlled the battlefield. Every 15 minutes, like clockwork, another shot would crack across the distance. Another Marine would dive for cover. Most of the shots missed. Deliberate misses. Psychological warfare. Reminding them that someone out there could reach out and touch them whenever he chose. When he didn't miss, Marines died. Sloan was repacking her medical bag when the radio squawked. Rain's voice, strained. Doc needs you at the eastern wall, now. She ran. The eastern wall overlooked the kill zone. 200 meters of open ground between the compound and the ridgeline where the sniper had made his nest. No cover, no concealment. Death ground. Hatcher was in the middle of it. The 19-year-old had been trying to recover ammunition from a disabled vehicle when the sniper had pinned him down. Now he lay behind a tire that provided exactly 8 inches of protection. His left shoulder was dark with blood. Rains was prone behind the wall, his eye pressed to his scope. His jaw was clenched so tight Sloan could see the muscle jumping. I can't get the angle, Rains said. His voice was controlled. Barely. The sniper's position is elevated. I'm shooting uphill. My rifle won't hold 0. Every time I try to line up, he puts a round 6 inches from Hatcher's head. As if to punctuate the point, a shot cracked out. Dirt exploded 2 feet from the Hatcher's face. The private curled tighter behind the tire. He's playing with him, Sloan said. He's waiting for one of us to try a rescue, then he gets 2. Sloan looked at the ridgeline, 800 meters, maybe more. She could see the rocky outcrop where the sniper had to be. Good position, excellent fields of fire, professional placement. Her father's voice, always her father's voice. High ground is God's gift to riflemen, Sloan. Respect it. She looked at Hatcher. The private was trying to make himself smaller, failing. His breathing was rapid, panicked. The shoulder wound was bleeding, but not critical. Not yet, But in this heat shock would set in fast, and if the bleeding didn't stop, he would bleed out in that dirt. 6 minutes, maybe 8. I can make that shot, Sloan said. The words came out before she had consciously decided to say them. They hung in the air like smoke. Rains turned to look at her. His face showed confusion, then comprehension, then skepticism. Doc, you said you don't shoot. I said I'm here to save lives. Hatcher dies in 6 minutes if someone doesn't do something. You can't make an 800-meter shot. 740 from here, and yes, I can. Talmadge had appeared behind them. His face was unreadable. Corpsman, you're telling me you can make a shot my designated marksman can't make. With respect, Gunny, your designated marksman's rifle is broken. Sergeant Wyatt's rifle isn't. Wyatt's unconscious. His rifle is set up for a left-handed shooter. I know. You shoot left-handed. No, but I can adapt. Talmadge studied her, the same way he had studied her when she stepped off the Chinook 3 weeks ago, looking for cracks, for weakness, for the lie behind the confidence. Another shot rang out, this one close enough to Hatcher that the private screamed. A high, terrified sound. Talmadge made a decision. The kind of decision that ends careers or saves lives, or both. Get Wyatt's rifle. Strand had already moved. The chief warrant officer returned in 40 seconds with the M40A3. The rifle was pristine, lovingly maintained. Wyatt treated his weapon better than most men treated their wives. Sloan took the rifle. The weight was familiar, old, like greeting someone you used to know. The stock length was wrong. The cheek weld would be awkward. The scope's eye relief was set up for someone shooting from the opposite shoulder. Everything about the weapon was backwards from how she had been trained. She made the adjustments in her head. Compensations, adaptations. Her hands checked the rifle with unconscious competence. Chamber, magazine, scope mounts. Everything that could fail, she verified wouldn't. Rains was watching her, really watching her now. Wind call, he said. 740 meters, 12 miles per hour left to right. Sloan didn't hesitate. 3.1 MOA right. Account for Coriolis effect at this latitude. Roughly 0.2 additional. Rains blinked. That's correct. Sloan moved to the wall, settled into position. The rifle came up and her body remembered things her mind had tried to forget. Breathing, bone support, natural point of aim. Through the scope, the world narrowed to circles and crosshairs. She found the target area, the rocky outcrop, shadows in stone. Somewhere in there, a man with a rifle was waiting. Her finger found the trigger. The pressure felt right, familiar, and wrong, she had promised. At her father's funeral. With her mother's hand gripping her so hard it left bruises. Never again, never become what he had been. But Hatcher was dying in the dirt. She breathed. 4 count in, 7 count hold. The rifle fired. Through the scope, she saw the impact. 2 feet left of where she had aimed. The wind had been stronger than she calculated, or she had overcorrected for the unfamiliar rifle, or 6 years away from competitive shooting had degraded her fundamentals. It didn't matter why. She had missed. Behind her, she heard someone curse, felt the weight of their doubt, their judgment. Talmadge's voice cut through. Stand down, Corpsman. One more, Douanier, Sloan said. You missed. I won't again. Something in her voice made Talmadge pause, some quality of absolute certainty that couldn't be faked. One more, he said. Then you're done. Sloan worked the bolt. The brass casing ejected in a golden arc. Another round chambered with a solid click. She had seen her impact, knew her error. 2 feet left meant she had overcorrected for wind. The answer wasn't more correction. It was less. She adjusted her hold, half the windage she had used before, found the target area again through the scope. This time she didn't think about promises, didn't think about her mother's tears, didn't think about 6 years of trying to be someone other than her father's daughter. She thought about Hatcher, 19 years old, bleeding in the dirt, writing letters home every night to parents who thought he was safe. She thought about the choice her father had taught her to make, and she chose. The rifle fired. Through the scope, she saw the target area, saw movement, saw the distinctive collapse of a human body when the nervous system stopped sending signals. 740 meters away, the enemy sniper stopped being a threat. For 5 seconds, nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Then Strand was on the radio. Target down! Target down! Clear to extract. 2 Marines sprinted into the kill zone, grabbed Hatcher under the arms, dragged him back to cover in a cloud of dust and adrenaline. Sloan stayed prone, the rifle still at her shoulder, watching, waiting, making sure it wasn't a trick. that there wasn't a second shooter waiting for targets of opportunity, but there was only silence. Finally, she safed the rifle, stood up. Her legs felt disconnected from her body. The entire squad was staring at her. Raines spoke first. His voice had changed. All the casual dismissal gone. "Where the hell did you learn to shoot like that?" Sloan handed him the rifle. "My father taught me." She walked past them, back to the medical hooch, back to where Hatcher would need treatment for the shoulder wound, back to being a corpsman. Behind her, she heard voices, questioning, discussing, processing what they had just witnessed. She didn't turn around. The afternoon bled into evening. Sloan worked. Hatcher's shoulder wound was clean. Through and through, no arterial involvement. She irrigated, packed, bandaged, gave him morphine for the pain and antibiotics for the infection that would try to take root in this filthy desert. The private kept looking at her like she had grown a second head. "You saved me twice today, Doc. That's the job." "The shot, that was, he struggled to find words. "That was impossible." "Clearly not." "Where did you rest, Hatcher? You're going to be fine." She left him there and went to inventory her supplies. Combat gauze, tourniquets, morphine, the tools of her trade, the things that made sense. Not rifles, not killing at distance, not the weight of a choice made in the space between heartbeats. Talmadge found her an hour later. The gunny had a folder in his hand. Service records. The brown manila folder that followed every service member through their career. "I pulled your file," Talmadge said without preamble. Sloan didn't look up from her inventory. "And no shooting qualifications, no range scores. Your M4 familiarization barely passed." Instructor wrote, "reluctant to engage targets." I was reluctant. "But you just made a 740-meter shot. Miss then hit. Combat conditions. Unfamiliar rifle set up backwards." "Yes, Gunny." "I made some calls before comms went dark." He opened the folder. "Your father, Gunnery Sergeant Garrett Merrick, scout sniper. 3 confirmed kills over 1,000 meters. Silver Star, KIA Fallujah 2005. Sloan's hand stilled on the tourniquet she was counting. "That's what the file says." "That's not all the file says, but I figure you'll tell me the rest when you're ready." He closed the folder, set it on the supply crate beside her. "You did good today, Corpsman. Whatever your reasons for keeping that skill buried, I'm glad you dug it up when it mattered." He left. Sloan stared at the folder for a long time. Then she went back to counting supplies. Night fell on day 1 like a curtain. The temperature dropped 40 degrees. The Taliban probe attacks continued, but without the sniper, they lacked coordination, lacked precision. Sloan found herself on the eastern wall. Couldn't sleep. Couldn't stop her hands from shaking. Post-adrenaline crash. She recognized the symptoms. Had treated them in others. Never thought she would experience them herself. She had killed someone today. The thought sat in her mind like a stone. Heavy. Undeniable. 740 meters away, a man had stopped breathing because she had pulled a trigger. Someone's son. Maybe someone's father. A human being with a life and a history, and people who would mourn him. She told herself he was trying to kill Hatcher. Told herself it was necessary. Told herself her father would understand. The justifications felt hollow. "You did the right thing," Strand's voice. The chief warrant officer materialized from the darkness like smoke. Quiet, economical in his movements. He sat down beside her without asking permission. They watched the darkness together for a long time. The stars impossibly bright in the Afghan sky. The distant mountains black silhouettes against the horizon. "Doesn't feel right," Sloan said finally. "It's not supposed to." "My father used to say that. The day it feels easy is the day you stop being human." Smart man. Dead man. Strand let the silence settle. When he spoke again, his voice was gentle. "Those scars on your hand, the powder burns. I knew they meant something more than weekend shooting." Sloan looked at her right palm, the stippling barely visible in the darkness. But she knew it was there, would always be there. "He taught me," she said, the words coming out quiet, like confession. "Started when I was 11, every weekend. Oregon timber country, rain or shine. By the time I was 16, I could put rounds on target at 1,000 meters. That's Olympic-level marksmanship. That's what happens when your father is a Marine Scout sniper and you're all he has left after your mother leaves." Strand absorbed this. "She left when I was 10. She said she couldn't watch him deploy anymore. Couldn't sit at home waiting for the phone call. So she left, filed for divorce, moved to California with a man who sold insurance. And your father raised you alone. He tried, he didn't know how to talk about feelings, Didn't know how to help with homework or braid hair or any of the normal parent things. But he knew rifles, knew hunting, knew the wilderness. So that's what we did. Sloan found herself talking, the words coming easier in the darkness with this quiet man who asked for nothing and judged nothing. She told him about growing up in a small house at the edge of the national forest, about a father who showed love through iron sights and breathing techniques, about learning to read wind before she learned to read maps, about weekends in hunting blinds where silence was companionship and precision was respect, about the day she was 16 and shot her first elk. Clean kill, textbook. The animal dropped in seconds, and she had cried. Cried until her father sat her down on a fallen log and explained, "Taking life is serious, Sloan. Should be serious. You feel that weight. Good. That means you understand. The day you stop feeling it is the day you need to stop pulling the trigger." About the last hunting trip before his final deployment. Age 17, spring of her senior year. They had hiked into the mountains for 3 days, didn't see any game worth shooting, just sat together in the quiet and watched the world. On the last night, her father had looked at her across the campfire. "You're better than me already," he had said. "Better shot, better hunter. But more than that, you understand why it matters. The restraint, the respect. That's what makes a marksman worth a damn." 3 months later, he deployed to Iraq. 6 months after that, she got the phone call. Sloane's voice went flat, clinical, the way she talked about medical procedures. Roadside bomb, Fallujah, November 2005. His vehicle was third in the convoy. The IED was buried deep. Big one, military-grade explosives. Killed everyone in the vehicle instantly. You were 20. Junior year of college, pre-med. I was in organic chemistry when the Marines came to campus. 2 of them. Dress blues. I saw them walking across the quad and I knew. Before they said a word, I knew. The funeral had been full military honors. Flag folded into a triangle. 21 guns salute. Taps played by a young Marine who looked like he was barely old enough to shave. Sloan had stood beside her mother. The woman who had left them 7 years earlier had returned for the burial. Diane Merrick had gripped Sloan's hand so hard it left bruises. At the cemetery after the rifle salute faded, after the last note of taps died in the cold November air, Diane had turned to her daughter. "Promise me," she had whispered, fierce, desperate. "Promise me you'll never touch a rifle again. I buried one Merrick who lived by the gun. I won't bury another. Promise me, Sloan." And standing there in the November cold with her father's casket 6 feet underground, Sloan had promised. "I joined the Navy 3 months later," Sloan told Strand, dropped pre-med, enlisted as a corpsman. "I was going to save lives, not take them. I was going to be everything my father wasn't." "You've kept that promise for 6 years. Until today. You saved a Marine's life today. By killing someone. By stopping someone from killing more." Sloan shook her head. "That's what I keep telling myself. Doesn't make it feel any better." Strand was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of experience. "I've been in this uniform for 20 years, Sloan. 3 wars. More deployments than I can count. And I can tell you this. The people who feel what you're feeling right now, they're the ones who should be allowed to pull the trigger. It's the ones who don't feel it that you have to worry about." My father felt it, and it still hollowed him out. Did it, or did losing your mother hollow him out, and the rifle was all he had left? Sloan had never considered that. "He used to have nightmares," she said quietly. "I would hear him, in his room, talking in his sleep, calling out. I asked him once what he dreamed about. He said he dreamed about the people he couldn't save, not the people he killed. The Marines who died because he wasn't fast enough, or accurate enough, or good enough. That's what I thought," Strand said. "Your father wasn't hollowed out by the killing. He was sustained by the protecting. The rifle wasn't the point. The people he protected were the point. And today you learned what he already knew." "What's that?" "Sometimes the only way to save a life is to take one." The words settled between them like truth. Sloan looked at her hands, healer's hands, killer's hands, both. "My mother is going to find out," she said. "Somehow, word will get back. And it's going to break her heart all over again. Maybe, or maybe she'll understand that you did what you had to do, that you're not becoming your father, you're becoming yourself. And maybe that's someone who can do both. Both. Heal and protect, save and stop. Use both hands for the same mission. Keeping Marines alive." Sloan thought about that, about integration instead of choice, about refusing the binary. I don't know if I can do that, she admitted. You already did. Today. They sat in silence for a while longer. The stars wheeled overhead. The distant mountains stood eternal and indifferent. Finally, Strand stood. His knees popped. Get some sleep, Corman. Tomorrow's going to be harder than today. He walked away, disappeared into the darkness. Sloane sat alone with her thoughts and the weight of a promise broken and the ghost of her father whispering in the wind. She thought he might be saying she did good. She hoped he was. Day 2 came with the sun. The Taliban attacked at dawn, coordinated assault from 3 sides. RPGs and small arms, mortars walking across the compound in a pattern designed to flush defenders from cover. Sloane was in the medical hooch when the first explosion hit. She grabbed her pack and ran. The fighting was close, brutal, the kind of engagement where marksmanship mattered less than volume of fire. Marines pouring lead downrange, the enemy answering back. Sloane moved through the chaos, treating wounds, stopping bleeding, keeping Marines in the fight. A mortar round landed 15 feet away. The blast wave knocked her sideways. Shrapnel punched through her left shoulder. Hot, sharp, then numb. She looked down, blood spreading across her uniform. Her blood, class 2 hemorrhage, maybe class 3. The medic in her brain cataloged the wound even as the pain started to register. She packed it, quick clot combat gauze stuffed into the wound, pressure dressing over the top, one-handed. Her right hand doing work that should have required 2. A Marine saw her, started to move toward her. Stay down, she shouted. I'm fine. She wasn't fine, but fine was relative. The firefight raged for another 20 minutes. Then it stopped. The way firefights do, sudden, the enemy pulling back, regrouping, casualties. Sloane moved between them, her left arm hanging useless, her right hand doing everything. IV lines, tourniquets, bandages. She worked until there was no one left to treat. Then Strand was beside her, looking at her shoulder. You need medical attention, Corman. It's packed. I'll live. Let me help. She let him, because she didn't have a choice. Strand redressed the wound with the efficiency of someone who had done this before. A lot. His hands were steady, gentle. You should be evacuated, he said. No medevac birds, we're cut off. You should at least rest. I'll rest when this is over. Rains appeared. His face was grim. Doc, need you at the eastern wall, now. Sloane followed. Her shoulder was on fire, but she could move, could function. That was enough. At the wall, Rains pointed toward the ridgeline. Second sniper, different position, 1180 meters. He's targeting our medevac LZ. Helicopter can't land with him active. 3 critical casualties needed evacuation. Without medevac, they would die. Your rifle's still broken. Still broken. Sloane looked at the distance. 1180 meters. Wind was variable. She was wounded. Shock would be setting in soon. Her hands were starting to shake. Bad shot, low probability, but the wounded needed to live. Set me up, she said. Rains helped her into position. The rifle felt heavier than yesterday. Everything felt heavier. Through the scope, the world swam. She blinked, forced focus. The target area was small, a gap in the rocks barely 3 feet wide. The sniper would have to expose himself to shoot at the approaching helicopter. The helicopter appeared on the horizon, distant, getting closer. Sloane's breathing was wrong, too fast, too shallow. The wound was stealing oxygen from her blood. Her vision was starting to tunnel. She forced her breathing to slow. 4 count in, 7 count hold. Through the scope, she saw movement. The enemy sniper adjusting a position. The helicopter was 300 meters out. 200. Sloane made her wind call. Elevation compensation. Her hands were shaking. Shock. Blood loss. Adrenaline crash. She thought about the wounded, about Hatcher, about all of them, all the Marines who had trusted her to keep them alive. Her hands steadied. Not completely, but enough. The rifle fired. 1180 meters. Through variable wind, uphill, wounded, shaking. Through the scope, she saw the target area, saw the distinctive spray, saw the body tumble. Confirmed kill. The helicopter landed 30 seconds later. The wounded were loaded. Critical first. Urgent second. Sloane watched it lift off, watched it carry her Marines to safety. Then she set the rifle down and her legs gave out. Strand caught her before she hit the ground. Easy, Corman, I got you. Everything was spinning. Did they get away, she asked. They got away, thanks to you. Good. Darkness was creeping in at the edges of her vision. Sloane, stay with me. I'm here, Chief, just tired. I know, but you need to stay awake. Through the gathering darkness, she heard voices. Marines gathering around. Someone was saying her name. Rains's face appeared above her. "That was a top 2% shot," he said, "and you made it wounded. I've trained with SEALs who couldn't make that shot fresh and healthy." Sloan wanted to tell him it wasn't skill. It was necessity. It was Marines who needed to live. But the darkness was winning. The last thing she heard before unconsciousness took her was Talmadge's voice. Calm, steady. "Get her stabilized. I don't care what it takes. She doesn't die. Not on my watch." And then there was nothing but darkness and dreams of Oregon mountains, and a father's voice saying she chose right. Sloan woke to white light and the smell of disinfectant. Not the field hospital, not the medical hooch with its plywood walls and desert dust. Somewhere else. Somewhere with clean sheets and IV poles and the steady beep of monitoring equipment. Her left shoulder was immobilized, bandaged properly. The kind of bandaging that came from people with time and proper supplies and surgical training. "Welcome back, Corman." Strand sat in a chair beside her bed. He looked older in the artificial light, tired, but his eyes were steady. "How long was I out?" 18 hours. You lost a lot of blood. Went into shock. Scared the hell out of everyone." Sloan tried to sit up. Her body informed her this was a terrible idea. She stayed horizontal. "The siege, still ongoing. Day 2. You've been here since yesterday afternoon. I need to get back. You need to stay still and heal. Doctor's orders." "I'm the only corpsman." "You're not much use to anyone if you're dead." Strand leaned forward. "We stabilized you, gave you 2 units of blood, closed the wound properly, but you lost a piece of muscle. Your left shoulder is going to be compromised for a while." Sloan absorbed this, calculated what it meant. Reduced range of motion, reduced strength. Nothing that would stop her from doing her job, but enough to notice. The wounded from yesterday, the medevac. "All stable. Thanks to you, they got out. 3 of them are going to make it because you made that shot." Through the window, Sloan could see the compound. Marines moving between positions. The organized chaos of people under siege. Fighting, surviving. "I need to get back there," she said again. "Not yet. Chief, 48 hours. That's what the doc said. Minimum. Your body needs time to replace the blood. Your wound needs time to close. You go back now, you'll just get yourself killed. Marines are dying. And you've saved more than your share. Let someone else carry the load for 2 days." Sloan wanted to argue, but her body was already arguing for her. She was weak, lightheaded. Her hands were shaking again. Strand saw it. "Sleep, Sloan. That's an order from a chief warrant officer, which means it's basically a suggestion you should really take seriously." Despite everything, Sloan almost smiled. She slept. Day 3. Sloan woke to the sound of explosions. Close. The building shook. Plaster dust fell from the ceiling in a fine white rain. She was out of bed before her brain fully registered what her body was doing. The IV line pulled tight. She ripped it out. Blood welled from the insertion point. She ignored it. Her uniform was on a chair. Someone had cleaned it. The blood mostly gone. She dressed one-handed. The left arm barely functional. Everything took 3 times as long as it should. Outside, the world was ending again. The Taliban had committed everything. Full assault, the kind of attack designed to overwhelm through sheer numbers and violence. Mortars, RPGs, heavy machine gun fire walking across the defensive positions. Sloan ran. The medical hooch was chaos. A Marine she didn't know was trying to manage 4 wounded simultaneously. He was young, overwhelmed, drowning. "Corman Merrick," she said. "I've got this." The relief on his face was immediate. "Doc, you're not supposed to." "I'm here, that's what matters. Status." He rattled off the casualties. Chest wound, abdominal trauma, 2 with shrapnel, all critical, all requiring immediate intervention. Sloan moved. Her body remembered even if her shoulder screamed protest. Triage, prioritize, save who you can. The chest wound was Private Martinez, 22 years old, punctured lung, sucking chest wound, air being pulled into the chest cavity with each breath, his lung collapsing. Sloan sealed it. Burp seal, occlusive dressing, 3 sides taped, 1 side open to let air escape but not enter. Martinez gasped, coughed, his breathing eased. "Stay with me, Martinez." She moved to the next casualty before he could answer. The radio squawked. Talmadge's voice, strained but controlled. "All positions, enemy snipers active. 2 positions, eastern ridge and northern approach. Rains is down, I say again, range is down. Shoulder wound. We have no counter-sniper capability. Sloane's hand stopped moving. No counter-sniper meant the enemy could pick them apart, could target the wounded, could make this compound a killing ground. Through the door, she could see Marines pinned down, unable to move, unable to maneuver. The snipers had them locked, and somewhere out there more Marines were bleeding. The choice came with crystalline clarity. She could stay here, treat the wounded as they came, do the job she had trained for, the job she had promised her mother she would do. Or she could pick up a rifle. Both hands, her father's voice whispered. They heal or they harm, but the best warriors know when to do both. Sloane looked at the young corpsman. Can you handle these four? Yes, Doc. Good, because I need to be somewhere else. She grabbed her medical pack, grabbed Wyatt's rifle, ran toward the eastern wall. Strand met her halfway. His face showed no surprise, like he had known this was coming. 2 snipers, he said without preamble. Eastern Ridge, 800 meters. Northern approach, 680. They're working together. Coordinated fire, professional. Where do you need me? Everywhere. He handed her a radio. Talmadge is trying to coordinate from the command post. 4 Marines down in the open. Kill zone. They'll bleed out in 10 minutes without medical attention. Sloane looked at the kill zone. 4 Marines, all wounded, all pinned by sniper fire. 10 minutes. She could save them if she could reach them. But to reach them, she had to neutralize the snipers. To neutralize the snipers, she had to leave the wounded. I need someone to spot for me, she said. I'm your someone. Sloane took position on the eastern wall. Her shoulder throbbed with every movement, the wound pulling, threatening to reopen. She set the rifle, found her natural point of aim. Through the scope, she could see the kill zone. 4 Marines down. 1 was Keller. The Marine who had called her a waste of a billet 3 weeks ago. He was trying to tourniquet his own leg. Failing. Another was Hatcher, the private she had saved twice already. He was dragging himself toward cover. Too slow, too exposed. Range to eastern sniper, she said. Strand had the spotting scope up. 820 meters. Wind 5 miles per hour right to left. Target is mobile. Window of opportunity maybe 2 seconds. Northern, 680, stationary. Better shot, but he's got overwatch on the eastern position. You take the northern, the eastern will kill you. So, eastern first. Eastern first. Sloane steadied her breathing. The pain in her shoulder was white noise. Something to acknowledge and set aside. The eastern sniper would fire again soon. They always did. Patient but not passive. Waiting for the right target. Hatcher was that target. Through the scope, Sloane saw the private dragging himself across open ground. Saw the rocks where the sniper had to be. Saw the slight shadow that didn't match the terrain. The sniper fired. Hatcher screamed. The round had missed, but close enough to spray him with rock fragments. Sloane saw the muzzle flash. Adjusted. Led the target. The sniper would shift position after firing. Standard practice. Never shoot twice from the same spot. She anticipated the movement. Fired. 680 meters. Moving target. 2-second window. The scope showed impact. Center mass, the shadow that didn't match disappeared. Stayed disappeared. Target down, Strand confirmed. Northern sniper repositioning. He knows you're here. Sloane was already moving, changing position. The northern sniper would have seen her muzzle flash, would be lining up his shot. She ran 10 feet, dropped behind a different section of wall. A bullet cracked where she had been 3 seconds before. Professional. Fast. 690 meters, Strand called. New position. He's moving again. This was the dance. Shooter and shooter. Whoever made the first mistake died. Sloane found the new position through her scope. Waited. Breathed. The northern sniper fired at where he thought she was. Missed. Sloane saw his muzzle flash. Adjusted. Fired. The bullet crossed 690 meters in under a second. Found its target behind inadequate cover. Target down, Strand said. Both snipers neutralized. Kill zone is clear. Sloane was already running. Her medical pack bounced against her back. The rifle slung. Both hands. Both skills. She reached Keller first. The tourniquet on his leg was loose. Wrong placement. He would bleed out in 3 minutes. I got you, Keller. She redid the tourniquet. High and tight. Above the wound, twisted the windlass until the bleeding stopped. Marked the time on his forehead. Moved to the next casualty. Martinez. The Marine with the chest wound she had sealed 30 minutes ago. He had been hit again. Abdominal trauma. Shrapnel. Blood pooling under him. Sloane packed the wound. Combat gauze. Pressure. her hands moving automatically while her brain calculated survival odds. 60%. Maybe. Good enough. She moved to the third Marine. Corporal Briggs, radial artery laceration, bright arterial blood pulsing with each heartbeat. Sloan tied it off, direct pressure while her other hand threaded sutures. Field surgery, crude but effective. The bleeding stopped. Fourth casualty. A Marine she didn't know well. Thompson, shrapnel to the abdomen, evisceration, intestines exposed. She covered them. Saline-soaked dressings, protected the organs, prevented infection as much as possible in a place where infection was inevitable. 7 minutes had elapsed since she reached the kill zone. All 4 Marines were stabilized. All 4 were going to live. The radio crackled. Talmadge's voice. "Doc, we've got more wounded, northern section. Machine gun nest is shredding our position." Sloan looked north, saw the tracers, heard the distinctive sound of a PK-10 heavy machine gun. Saw Marines trying to find cover where there was none. The machine gun nest was 950 meters away, protected by sandbags. 2 shooters. Professional position. "I can suppress it," she said into the radio. "Negative, Doc. You're needed for medical." "Gunny, I can do both." Silence on the radio. Talmadge calculating. Weighing impossible choices. "Do it," he said finally. "But don't you dare get killed." Sloan moved to a position with a line of sight to the machine gun nest. Set the rifle. Found her breathing. 950 meters. 2 targets. Moving, firing. Protected by cover. She waited for the gunner to expose himself. They always did. Had to. To see their targets. To aim. To reload. There. The gunner's head and shoulders visible for 3 seconds. Sloan fired. The gunner dropped. The assistant gunner took over. Trained. Professional. The gun never stopped firing. Sloan worked the bolt. Chambered another round. Waited. The assistant gunner made the mistake of staying in the same position too long. Confidence or desperation. Sloan fired. 2 shots. 2 kills. 950 meters. The machine gun went silent. "Machine gun neutralized," she reported, moving to casualties. The northern section had 3 wounded, all critical. Sloan moved between them with the efficiency of someone who had done this 100 times. Tourniquet, pressure dressing, IV line. Another Marine down. Tension pneumothorax. Sloan decompressed the chest. 14-gauge needle between the ribs. The hiss of escaping air. Breathing normalized. She worked until there were no more casualties to treat. Then she picked up the rifle and moved to the next position because somewhere the enemy was regrouping and Marines needed protection. The siege broke at hour 7 of day 3. Sloan had transitioned between medic and sniper 17 times. Her shoulder had reopened. Blood soaking through her uniform again. She was running on adrenaline and stubbornness. 4 Marines saved through medical intervention. 5 enemy eliminated through precision fire. The numbers were clinical, abstract, but each number was a person, a life, a choice made in the moment between heartbeats. The Taliban pulled back, regrouped. The attack faltered and broke like a wave against rock. And then it was over. Sloan stood on the eastern wall, the rifle at her side, her medical pack empty, her hands shaking with exhaustion and blood loss. Strand found her there. "You need medical attention," he said. "I know. You saved 9 Marines today, killed 5 enemy. I've been in this uniform for 20 years. I've never seen anything like what you just did. I did what I had to. You did what nobody else could." Sloan looked at her hands. They were covered in blood. Some of it hers, most of it belonging to the Marines she had kept alive. Both hands, one healed, one harmed. Both saved lives. "My father would understand," she said quietly. "Your father would be proud." 72 hours later, Sloan woke in a field hospital in Kandahar. The siege had ended on day 4. Reinforcements had arrived. The Taliban had melted back into the mountains. The compound was secure. Sloan had been evacuated unconscious. Blood loss, exhaustion, shock. She woke to find medals on the table beside her bed. Purple Heart. The wound in her shoulder qualified her. Blood shed in combat. Navy Cross, the nation's second highest decoration for valor. And a note, official letterhead, a colonel's signature. "Corpsman Merrick, your actions during the siege of FOB Sentinel represent the highest traditions of military service. Medal of Honor recommendation has been submitted." Additionally, the Navy is creating a new military occupational specialty, Integrated Combat Medicine Specialist. You are hereby appointed as the first instructor. Report to Camp Lejeune upon medical clearance. Colonel James Morrison. Sloan read it twice. Then she set it down and looked at the ceiling. A new specialty, a new way of thinking about combat medicine. Because of what she had done. Because she had proven that healing and fighting weren't opposites. They were complementary. Two hands, both necessary. The door opened, Marines filed in. Her Marines, Hatcher, alive, healing. He had a purple heart of his own now, and a story about the corpsman who saved him 3 times. Keller, on crutches. The leg was saved. He would walk again, fight again, live. Martinez, bandaged but breathing. The chest wound was healing. Briggs, the radial artery repair had held. His hand would function. Talmadge came last. The gunny's face was unreadable. "Doc," he said, just that one word. "Gunny, you broke regulations, left your medical post, took up a weapon, engaged in direct combat action." Sloan met his eyes. "Yes, Gunny. You saved 9 Marines, eliminated 5 enemy combatants, single-handedly changed the course of a battle. I did what I had to." Talmadge's face cracked, just slightly, the hint of a smile. "You did what your father trained you to do. Both parts, the healing and the fighting. And you did them better than anyone I've ever seen." He held out his hand. Sloan took it. "Your father would be proud," Talmadge said. "Hell, I'm proud." The Marines gathered around her bed. Hatcher told her she had saved him 3 times and he was keeping count. Keller said he had been wrong about her and he would spend the rest of his deployment making it up to her. Martinez just gripped her hand and said thank you. And Sloan understood something that had eluded her for 6 years. Her father hadn't been hollowed out by the killing. He had been sustained by the protection. The rifle wasn't the point. The people he protected were the point. And now she understood. 6 months later, Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, March 2012. Lieutenant Sloan Merrick stood in front of 18 students, Marine combat medics, Navy corpsmen, all volunteers for the new program. Integrated combat medicine specialist, the first of its kind. On the table in front of her sat 2 items, a medical pack and an M40A3 rifle. "Which one matters more?" she asked the class. A young corpsman raised his hand, eager, earnest. "The medical pack, ma'am. Our job is to save lives." "Wrong question," Sloan said. "The question isn't which matters more. The question is, when do you use each one?" She picked up the medical pack with her right hand, the rifle with her left. Her shoulder still ached, would always ache, a permanent reminder. You heal when you can, you fight when you must. But the goal is always the same. Bring them home alive. She set both items down. This program exists because someone decided that saving lives and protecting lives aren't different missions. They're the same mission approached from different angles. Both hands, one heals, one protects, both save lives. The students were listening, really listening. Sloan picked up the rifle again. "We're going to the range. I'm going to show you what you're capable of. Then you're going to show me." And the range sat under a Carolina sun. Different climate than Afghanistan, different terrain, but the fundamentals were the same. Sloan took position. The rifle settled into her shoulder like it had always belonged there. 900 meters, standard target. She breathed. 4 count in, 7 count hold, 8 count out. Fired. Through the scope, she saw the impact. Center mass. The students applauded. Sloan stood, looked at them, saw their faces, their eagerness, their fear, their determination. "Your turn," she said. By the end of the day, 14 of the 18 had qualified at 600 meters. By the end of the week, all 18 were combat ready. By the end of 6 months, the program had expanded to every Marine Special Operations Command unit. The Army wanted in. The Air Force was asking questions. The VA was requesting curriculum for 8 states. Civilian paramedics with tactical training. Both hands protocol had become official doctrine. And the numbers were undeniable. 83 enemy killed in action by program graduates. 127 friendly forces saved through medical intervention. 0 program graduates killed in action. 0. That evening, Sloan sat in her office. The day's paperwork done. The students dismissed. On her desk sat a photograph. Age 14, Oregon timberland, a girl and her father, both holding rifles, both smiling. Beside it, her father's sniper logbook. The last entry dated March 2005. Taught Sloan 1,000-yard fundamentals today. She's better than me already. Steady hands, steady heart. She'll do great things. Sloan touched the photograph. "I'm doing them, Dad." Her phone rang. She answered. "Sloan, it's Mom." Diane Merrick's voice, older, frailer, but still her mother. "Hi, Mom. I heard about the program, about what you're doing. Sloan waited, bracing for the disappointment, the anger, the reminder of the promise broken. Your father came to me in a dream, Diane said quietly. Last week, he was sitting in his old chair in the den, and he looked at me and smiled, and he said, she chose wisely, both hands, always both hands. I didn't understand until the Navy called to tell me about your Medal of Honor recommendation. Sloane's throat tightened. Mom, I broke my promise. I picked up a rifle. I became what you were afraid I would become. No, baby, you became what you were always meant to be. Your father's daughter, but better, because you learned both parts, the healing and the fighting. He only knew one. You know both. I killed people, Mom. You saved people. 9 Marines are alive because of you, and now you're teaching others to do the same. That's not what I was afraid of. What I was afraid of was you becoming someone who killed because it was easy, or because it was all you knew how to do, but that's not you. You kill because you have to protect, to save. That's different. Sloane closed her eyes, felt something she hadn't felt in 6 years. Peace. I love you, Mom. I love you too. And Sloane, your father is so proud, and so am I. The call ended. Sloane sat in the quiet of her office. Outside, students were running evening PT, preparing for deployment, for the moment when they would have to choose between the medical pack and the rifle. Learning that the choice wasn't binary, both hands, always both hands. Through the window, she watched a female student running the course, pushing herself, refusing to quit. The next generation, the legacy. Sloane stood, walked to the range, watched the students practice. Corrections offered, encouragement given, knowledge passed from one generation to the next, the way her father had taught her, the way she was teaching them. At 1900 hours, the range went quiet. The students cleaned their weapons with the same care they cleaned their medical equipment. Both tools, both necessary, both capable of saving lives when wielded by steady hands. Sloane walked the line, checked their work, offered quiet praise. When they were dismissed, she stayed, alone on the range, the sun setting over Carolina, the rifle in her hands. She thought about Afghanistan, about Hatcher and Keller and Martinez, about Talmadge and Strand and Rains, about the siege that had forced her to become both healer and warrior. She thought about her father, about the promise made and the promise broken, about learning that sometimes the right choice is the hardest one. She thought about the students, about 47 lives saved by them in 6 months, about the ripple effects spreading through the military, about the doctrine being rewritten because one corpsman had proven that integration was stronger than specialization. Both hands, one healed, one protected, both saved lives. Sloane raised the rifle, found her natural point of aim. 900 meters downrange, the target barely visible in the fading light. Breathed, fired. Through the scope, she saw the impact. Center mass, even now, even after everything. The fundamentals remained. Steady hands, steady heart. She safed the rifle, walked back to the office. Tomorrow, more students would arrive, more warriors learning to heal, more healers learning to fight. The program would grow, the doctrine would spread, the legacy would continue. And somewhere in Oregon, a mother slept peacefully, knowing her daughter had found a way to honor her father without losing herself. Somewhere in the mountains of Afghanistan, 9 Marines were alive because one corpsman had learned to use both hands. And somewhere in the future, a generation of warriors would carry forward the lesson. They used to say medics save lives and snipers take them. Lieutenant Sloane Merrick proved them wrong. The best warriors do both. Drag them out alive. Keep them alive. Protect them with both hands, always both hands. The rifle went into the case, the medical pack onto the shelf. Tomorrow both would be needed again. Tonight they rested side by side. Tools of the trade, different purposes, same mission. Sloane turned off the lights, locked the door. Outside, the base continued its eternal rhythm, training, preparing, protecting. And in the morning, she would teach them again how to heal, how to fight, how to be both. Because war demands warriors. But the best warriors know that victory isn't measured in enemies killed. It's measured in people saved. Both hands. Always both hands. The story of Corpsman Sloane Merrick ended where it began, with steady hands that knew how to heal and how to harm, and the wisdom to know when to use each.